What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Twink Revolution, episode 17. I am Sam.
And I'm Gian.
And we're back in the USA.
Hell yeah. Taste of freedom.
Yeah, so much freedom.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone.
It's 2020, a new decade.
Yeah, it started out really good, and then a day later it went complete shit, but that's okay.
The seeds of that were planted, earlier, though, in the last decade, so that's fine.
No, it's not possible. It was only Trump. He did everything.
Yeah. It's so nice to be back in the heart of the empire and just really feel like we're participating in something very special, something that really just makes a difference in the world.
Yeah.
Mostly through military intervention, but,
It's okay. At least our country's not on fire. I'm just kidding. That's also Trump's fault.
Yeah, I thought it was really fucked up that Trump went and murdered all those kangaroos. That's Orange Cheeto bad man, Trump 45. Just can't get any worse.
But it's cute. Now that we're in, the burnt ones have, cute little, underwear and, mittens and stuff to cover their burns.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
I know it's sad, but it's also kind of cute.
Animals wearing people clothes. They think they're people.
Yeah.
They think they're subjects of neoliberalism and victims of, climate change. Oh, dear. So we were in New Zealand for 2 weeks, and it was great.
Yeah.
Hope you didn't miss us too much.
No, hopefully our episodes we put out were complete garbage.
No, they never are. They're always excellent content. How did you like New Zealand, Sam?
I loved it. I'm sad to be back.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was kind of for one, my phone wasn't able to work because I didn't want to pay the $51 for a SIM card. So I basically had no social media access minus a few times a day when I was in Wi-Fi. And it was great to be disconnected.
Yeah, I had roaming or whatever, but it was very slow and crappy, so I was not that in contact, and it was good. It was good for the soul, I think.
Yeah.
Well, what was your favorite part of New Zealand?
The food.
Tell me about the food then.
There is vegan ice cream everywhere, so I kept being a fat ass and kept eating everywhere we went because America is good, but not that good. And food opportunities are vegans. Yeah,
I got to say the things that have crept in since I left New Zealand, I don't know, 11 years ago or something. So the things that have changed since I left are sort of fascinating. Or more so the things that I think I've come to believe are normal in the US that are. Was going to go back to New Zealand. I was like, oh, that is really strange. Portion sizing in meals.
Way better.
Just radically different.
I could actually finish the whole thing.
Yeah, I didn't quite realize till I sort of ordered some, takeout shit for lunch today and was like, holy shit, this is a lot of food.
Yeah, I didn't actually realize when we were in New Zealand until I was like, wait, I finished every meal for this first week. What the fuck is going on?
So you're saying that it's a weak social democracy has produced starvation among the people.
Yeah. I mean, there were some fat people, but not that many.
Yes, that was noticeably different. The scenery is always very pretty in New Zealand.
Yeah, it was nice being back in nature. I guess having lived in Wisconsin, where a few minutes away it was farmland and forests and stuff. Moving to San Francisco, where our park is just an area for junkies to throw their needles everywhere. It's really immersed in nature. It's very managed and dirty, and here was pristine and beautiful, and it was nice.
Yeah, it's an egalitarian kind of nature as well. I think I feel the U.S. has some incredibly stunning natural beauty to it, but it's always sort of regarded as a somewhat remote thing. Like the national park system, for example, it's sort of something that rich techies go to do as a recreational activity or something. It's not just a thing that is accessible to all at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, New Zealand, you feel very, very integrated. It all feels very integrated, right? It's I'm just here's a sign for a walking track, and I'm just going to walk down here, and here's a beautiful waterfall or something.
Yeah.
Sort of people integrate into their lives in a pretty, I don't know, in an interesting way, at least to me.
It's also just fun talking to like people who actually live there and overhearing things like social programs where I was like, wait, you get retrained when they get rid of your job? Like, what the fuck is that? Because like it was just very like weird things I didn't really think about because we're so fucked over. Like New Zealand post austerity, which occurred in the country, is like still like massively better for the majority of people than like the U.S.
Yeah. And actually, if you allow me a Thomas Friedman moment, if you recall, there was an Iraqi taxi driver in Auckland who we were having a conversation with on New Year's Eve there. And he was sort of half jokingly, but very approvingly saying, New Zealanders, like, they'll just spend whatever's in their bank account to have a good time today. They don't worry about tomorrow. And I thought it was sort of an interesting observation because it's like, yeah, it's kind of true because your worries are relatively few. If there's, if there's food in the cupboard and, and you have a home, you're kind of fine. Like you're not, jobs do not just stop paying you unexpectedly. And if you do lose your job, there's things like job retraining and career counseling and an actual like unemployment system that is available to you, which unfortunately I think has been stripped back a little bit to make it a little more like means tested bullshit. But still, the lack of sort of constant precarity. I feel like particularly in the Bay Area where it's the cost of living is so high, just everyone has this kind of constant buzzing in their ears of the terror of being destitute. It is not far away for most people. Even those who are sort of relatively comfortable and wealthy and well paid are still fundamentally living like paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And living paycheck to paycheck in the US might mean you just like die or end up on the street. Living paycheck to paycheck in New Zealand, well, sure, sucks still, but like, it is less of an existential threat. Your standard of living will not hopefully degrade rapidly overnight. Not to say there's not plenty of problems in that country, but
coming back to the U.S. just because when I got back, we arrived in San Francisco and I live in Oakland, so it's like a 40-minute trip on like public transit, and just like kind of like realizing, this is how shitty it is. Like right next to my house is a giant shanty village of people who are just like there all the time, and there's just trash everywhere because the city won't do anything. And like, I guess it kind of like being in New Zealand where you don't see any of that. Like we went to all the big cities. It wasn't just like specific parts. We went all over, and I saw like 4 homeless people, and they're like maybe homeless. Like
there are people who are probably I don't know, euphemistically underhoused. But systemic homelessness is not as much of a problem in New Zealand as here. It is a problem, which is sad because it used to not be a problem. And 10 years of a sort of, government austerity programs certainly made it such that it becomes possible for people to become homeless in New Zealand. It was not always the case, or it was usually, probably required some active participation, as in like, I choose not to have a home.
But just coming back kind of like, it was like, oh, I'm all fresh and new. And it's like, oh, wait, now I'm sad again because of all the like how decrepit like San Francisco and like a lot of the cities are here. And it's like seeing all of that, like within like 40 minutes of being back in the U.S., like here's a giant shanty village and you like pass 5 homeless people like within the first 5 minutes of being back. It's like, oh, that sucks.
The amount of human waste on the streets, and needles, and just the depths of human misery. It was not great to see. Great to see you to come back.
I did miss some stuff though.
Like what?
For one, spicy food. Like everything was kind of like, to me it was tasty, but it was kind of bland. Like I think Americans are really preconditioned to like spicier things than probably a lot of New Zealanders. And
it's not a country with a particularly spicy palate. Although we did keep going past Mexican restaurants, and you just ceaselessly mocked the idea that you would have Mexican restaurants in New Zealand.
Yeah, because it makes no sense. Like it's not going to be good. And I know that because DC has a lot of Mexican restaurants too, and there's no Mexican people really there. It's mostly like Cubans and like El Salvadorians, and all their Mexican food is garbage. It's like, why would it be good in New Zealand?
Well, you didn't try it, so I'm just suggesting maybe that's where all the spicy food was.
I had a burrito.
Did you?
Yeah, that like Latin American. It was like Venezuela, something like.
Yeah, you got a burrito at a Venezuelan place.
Yeah,
like
well,
what?
It wasn't even good.
They're eating rabbits there, Sam. It's Venezuela. It's
it's
an evil dictatorship, and they're all starving.
If it was a real Venezuelan restaurant, they wouldn't have given us anything. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, and the men.
Oh God, yeah. So one of the things about leaving New Zealand was that men there are not very attractive at all.
Yeah,
it's really unfortunate.
It's like God forgot to write in the chins.
Yeah, a country of weak chins. And it's weird. It's it comes across as both there's some premature aging, I think, from the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like people just tend to look a little weathered pretty early. Like people in their mid-20s are already starting to look just like a little more like they've lived. Which is fine. But also, just maybe some lack of genetic diversity or something has plagued that country with just faces where you're like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of attractive people. Like, we're not saying everyone's unattractive, but a lot of them that happen to also be like, have parents with closer ties to other countries, like in Europe or stuff, which means it probably had more genetic diversity, or we're like mixed or something. So like, or British. There's a lot of British attractive people there, and Australians.
Yeah, so I think fundamentally New Zealand needs a program of mass immigration, just rapidly to just get some genetic diversity and some more attractiveness. Open borders. Well, import. What is it? Was it the Venezuelan like Mr. Universe contest or whatever?
Yeah.
Is that there's a TikTok account of just like porny Venezuelan twinks, basically like on the beach.
All the losers have to go to Venezuela and reproduce.
Oh no, I just assumed we were just gonna like do mass importation of Venezuelan models to New Zealand to like I don't know, improve the gene pool and the food probably as well for you.
I don't know what Venezuela food is. Maybe I don't like it.
Don't order a fucking burrito next time.
I thought it was Mexican.
It wasn't Mexican. We went to the museum of the Te Papa, the National Museum of New Zealand in Wellington.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's I'd been probably last about 10 years ago or something on some trip back, and they've done a good job.
Yeah, I like that. Everywhere, not just in the museum, but like in the country, they had translations in both Maori and English, which was kind of cool. It's like to see something like that where it's like, oh, here we're like, we don't even talk about you people.
Yeah, the use of Maori language there has increased a lot since I left as well. Mm-hmm. It might be my personal doing just by leaving. They're like, oh, finally we can start doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice to see, and I feel like to the extent that people talk about these sort of decolonization programs in very like shitty lib terms, and it's sort of a putting occupied something land in your Twitter bio is not a radical act. But it is interesting to see, right? Like the museum, that you can tell the stories of New Zealand with reference to Maori and not just sort of dominant, European New Zealand culture.
Yeah.
And I thought they'd done a good job at that. It wasn't sort of trying to fetishize any sort of like blended New Zealand identity too hard. It was actually like, really talked a lot about Maori culture and Maori art and not as like a dead thing. Yeah. But more as like, hey, no, this is part of New Zealand. So I don't know, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, it was just interesting just because I haven't been to like most of the Smithsonian's in DC. Like there's the U.S. History Museum, and then there's the Native American History Museum, and then there's also like the African American one. But it's kind of weird that they compartmentalize it based off of like marginalization groups. And also the Native American one is horrible. It's like mostly empty and it's like not well done at all.
Oh dear.
Like it's not good. Like it's just a very weird way to do U.S. history if you're not talking about all the Native American stuff incorporated of all of it. It's very much.
Yeah, it is to other that culture as a relic of the past, and it has been completely replaced by this other thing, which is like, the Air and Space Museum or whatever.
Like, when's the Women's Museum going to be built? Like,
oh, don't give them, don't suggest it. It'll happen.
Yeah.
It's sort of the full embodiment or the full embrace of vulgar American identitarianism is, really expressed through museums primarily. This is the next battleground of culture. Fuck my life.
Shut them down. I'm just kidding.
What else has been happening this week?
Contrapoints released a new video. I think it was not this week, but it was like last Friday. And it was called The Canceling. And people got upset about that yet again.
Yeah. It's an hour and 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
Which I understand why that's intimidating. I did look at that and kind of go,
movie.
I was like, holy shit, am I going to commit to this?
Yeah.
I did commit to it. And fairly early in the piece, she does sort of say, a lot of the people who to whom this is addressed will simply not watch this.
Yeah.
And then it was funny to sort of, after it came out, watch Twitter just explode with a bunch of people being like, I am not watching this. I will never watch this. If you watch this video, unfriend me and block me right now. You are worse than Hitler. It was just remarkable. What did you think of the content of the video?
I liked it. I mean, I watched it from beginning to end in one sitting. And I didn't think it really, like, it could have just, like, said the same point for an hour and 40 minutes, but it didn't. It seemed to actually grapple with her own situation, and it's kind of the broader canceling culture of, I'm going to put this in quotations, the left, but they're not leftists, they're libs. And yeah, I think she made apologies where her mind has changed, but also was like willing to refuse to apologize for things because people told her to, which is the right attitude.
Yeah, I was worried it was going to be an hour and 40 minutes of like, to my haters, which it was not, right? I mean, there was actually some analysis built into it around the mechanics of cancellation. And a lot of it with reference to James Charles, friend of the show, James Charles, and his cancellation, and the dynamics of it are sort of spelled out as a sort of structural, a set of steps around like essentializing and abstraction and things like that. It's sort of well done. But what was most poignant in there to me is there was some history of the James Charles stuff I didn't quite realize is just how many times people have tried to cancel him.
Yeah. Or
how many times he's been sort of mini-cancelled. And Contrapoints is the same, right? I mean, there's like, ever since she enjoyed any level of success, there has been a contingent of people who have been like, we're going to get her on something. We don't really care what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like she refers to herself as being canceled, but I think the podcast Red Scare makes a really good point of like when they're told, oh, how is it being canceled? And they're like, I'm not canceled. Like people like Milo are canceled. They're banned from social media. Their completely lives are destroyed. Like Contrapoints, which it's more like she's been tried to be canceled, and it definitely takes a toll if you're not truly canceled. But like she left Twitter. Twitter didn't force her off like a true canceling would.
Yeah, I think the one moment of lapsing into some self-pity is a little bit around the like the personal cost, and fair enough. I'm sure it's horrible.
Yeah.
It is part of the it's part of the territory of unfortunately becoming a brand, right? We are all brands.
Yeah.
And I look forward to our inevitable cancellation.
We're only getting one?
Multiple. Yeah.
I want them all.
It's okay. I'm just going to edit you saying the N-word in this episode over and over again. Yeah, that'll do it. But so I was pleased that it didn't go too far into that territory.
No.
Although, the claim that like to be cancelled is, yeah, as you say, like a terminal state is not it's not quite true, right? It's more about like you are basically going to be mobbed. It's like, you know, having people sort of decide to throw things at you in the streets or something, just as a force of habit. And she does sort of rightly say like, hey, actually, I'm going to be fine. You know, it's her income and support systems and all that are intact.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fascinating to me just the level of vitriol. In terms of just, she's, you know, there's a lot of tweets, screen capped tweets being read out in there. And it's just, I mean, just hysterical weirdos.
Everyone has like an anime picture as their profile.
Yeah, well, it's just disingenuous for one, but just the hyperbole, right? Just the like, you are Hitler. Like, it's just literally straight away. People literally say this stuff. Like, it's insane. Or just, you know, taking a kind of a minor imagined slight and blowing it up into like, Contrapoints is personally murdering trans teenagers. Like, yeah, checks out.
Yeah.
And it is sort of, there's just, I don't know, there's a sort of self-serious group of people who I think are just not very well. And they have Twitter accounts.
Well, I mean, it's like the best place for anonymity where you can like actively engage with like people who are personalities. Like with like 4chan and stuff, I feel like it's still a little more like anonymous and like you don't really stick onto like personalities of too much. But like this is like the whole thing is about the brand of the profile and tearing down those to satisfy a bunch of crazy people on Twitter.
Yeah, I think that's sort of it though. It's the craziness. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and it is sort of like a swirling pool of people who I genuinely think are very unwell, who have found there's a particular mechanic within Twitter, right, which is about like, yeah, you can cultivate that and find a like-minded group of people who are similarly fucking batshit crazy. And if you batshit neurodivergent, it's ableist. But like, it's where we will necessarily always bow to those who understand irony the least and are the most insane.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, there's an escalation or an arms race of just being louder, crazier, more vitriolic, and making the most outlandish claims about how bad this imagined enemy is.
Yeah.
And that's how you get the motherfucking clout.
Yeah, it just kind of like shows whenever a leftist becomes prolific, the puritanism of like primarily like the radical libs, but even some leftists, like I'm just gonna say it's libs because there are leftists who are crazy as shit as well, and they just got to destroy anyone for any impure thought, whether it's right or wrong. They're not really looking for a debate. They're looking for like abolition, like they're looking to destroy someone and not ever actually engage with like their ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it is it's an essentializing discourse, and that it's like you are a bad person, and once you've been marked out as a bad person, and you know,
it's like Angela Nagel, where like they just took her like last piece on like the open borders and just made it seem like you're a Strasserite and you're like a Nazi
Nazbol.
like red brown alliance, and it's like I reread the article because you told me you reread it as well, and like it was much more mild. Like
it's incredibly mild mainline article.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you think about like who are leftists you would actually sort of regard as real leftists who haven't been given this treatment, and I feel like there's you know, I don't know, you know, Chapo, like everyone on Chapo, they try and cancel them, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
Red Scare certainly.
People like Bernie Sanders and
Bernie's canceled.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah. Brianna Joy Gray, like, I mean,
Abby Martin.
anybody,
like,
right? It's like if you are of the left and have sort of sincere political convictions of the left, then you fall victim to two distinct groups. I think one is just hysterical radlibs who are liberals and fundamentally ideologically disagree with you, and then a kind of weird, like soft left liberal consensus, which is the like they will give a lot more credence to loud, insane rad libs and their ravings than to actual, say, like material analysis or class politics. Because they're still inculcated with, I think, all the habits of liberals, which is to say that, like, wow, that person's really upset and they're a marginalized minority or something, and like, wow, we should really center their voice or whatever. It's like, no, they're fucking crazy. No, do not give this person a platform.
Yeah.
Do not listen to them at all. They're batshit crazy. I'm sure their personal lives are, full of people who do not talk to them anymore.
Yeah.
But online, right? Because you can sort of center it within a political context. You're like, well, really for the sake of appearances or to be good people, we must center these voices. It's like, no, this person's just not an honest actor, for one, and also is actively destructive. It's the kind of wrecker theory. And these people are just wreckers, but they're either wreckers or they're just liberals who are actively hostile to the political project of the left.
I do think, in a way, cancel culture is kind of being crippled in a way, just because the people who have made it through, regardless of the repeated attempts, are the ones who just don't care, and in many cases have such loyal bases that they're already financially independent, so they can say what everyone else is thinking and isn't willing to say, because in some cases it's like, oh, you have an employer, so like they can cancel, like get you fired and shit like that. Like Red Scare, like they're independent pretty much because they're like Patreon and like their own projects, and it's like you're not going to cancel them. Like,
yeah, and that's that's the case with Chapo Trap House or Contrapoints as well, right? In terms of there's a sort of loyal enough fan base that are provide a sort of financial independence. The problem with most people in the U.S., right, and particularly if you're thinking about like you're just a small figure, you are dependent on a wage to pay your bills.
Yeah,
it actually has a lot more power. So it's not like you're essentially like consolidating power within a small number of media figures. It has a sort of reinforcing effect.
It's just thought police. It's like a good example of like what it probably is for most people who don't have that like network is like, remember the lady years ago who went to Africa and tweeted, going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. And she literally arrived in Africa and she was fired.
Yes.
But her tweet wasn't actually about like, or saying everyone in Africa has AIDS. She was making fun of people who make that accusation. And it was completely missed because they never even addressed her because she had no excess in the air. Like it was a joke targeted towards like the bigot assholes. It wasn't targeted towards the African people. And like you said, there's no subtlety to these people who want to cancel anyone for...
Oh yeah, they don't understand irony.
No.
I genuinely believe that the main political disagreement taking place, within the broad left liberal sphere is between those who understand irony and can just parse it at all, and those who cannot.
Yeah.
Just literally like you can write, this is a joke on something, and they're still like, how dare you? How very dare you, sir?
Yeah. It is funny, though, because some of them will try to actually do irony on Twitter and stuff, and they can't do it. And then when you call them out for just making a bad point, I'm like, oh, I was being funny. But there's nothing, you can't, if you had to say it's funny, then it's not funny.
Not funny enough. It's
not funny enough.
Yeah.
It's just like, and they're the ones who call everyone. It's like, oh.
That's it, right? I think if you basically take the least charitable reading of anything anybody says, deliberately or unintentionally, I don't know, misunderstand humor and irony, right? And be like, no, everything you just said was sincere. When you claimed to be actually a giant banana taped to a wall in a gallery, that was a lie, and you are a lying bad person. It's just bizarre to interact with these people, right? You're like, okay, the world just must be a joyless place for one.
So that's why we need
but also baffling.
Yeah. It's why we need an NHS, because clearly there's some problems going on.
National Humor Service.
And I say this as a person on Twitter.
Yeah.
It is sad. It's really sad. And it's so often just doing like the PMCs and like bidding, just like targeting other like working class people, because it's never targeted towards people of power, or if it is, it's like just completely silenced in the media. But the media will push it out, like BuzzFeed and shit. Like they'll push that shit out day after night if it's like anyone who's an actual like lefty, or even if they're right wing. Like it's like, oh, you got a person fired. That's great. Now what are they gonna do? Oh, they're gonna go welfare, which they also hate.
If they can,
yeah, if they can, or they're gonna like die in the streets. And it's like, some of them probably would want that.
Oh,
but
no, there
like,
are people will quite openly say,
yeah,
I hope they starve to death.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty hideous. And then the problem is, a lot of it's like, if you think about where's the power behind any of this, you would say every time the fucking Queerty or Pink News or whatever goes after a sort of like a homophobe, right? Mm-hmm. Quote unquote homophobe. When it's like a right wing televangelist or some shit, that's just good for them. Like, it's financially good for them.
Yeah.
They like, their base is like, oh, look at them under attack from the evil gay media or whatever. Right. They're gonna get more money and more, notoriety in their community and things like that. When it's like, I don't know, a fucking construction worker who tweets a gay joke and calls someone a faggot on Twitter or something, like, that person losing their job is not good.
Yeah, what if it was funny? But there's no structural aspect to any of this. It's completely like hyper individualized, like warmongering, and it just doesn't lead us anywhere. Like, how the fuck are we supposed to like actually create a class-based movement, especially when we want to like expand like unionization and stuff, if like they're gonna just fall prey to this like pseudo like wokeness bullshit that's just like gonna kick everyone out, or like make it so alienating that you're gonna focus on, okay, whose voice do we elevate the most, instead of how are we gonna get more fucking money from these rich fucks. Like, that's what it's a complete distraction.
Yeah, no, please, use my pronouns correctly as you starve me to death and feed me into the mill to make me into Soylent Green.
That's what it's for. It's just to distract you from the real issues that impact your life. And because like these things don't threaten any system of power. Like, it's just complete distraction. It's really infuriating.
Yeah, there was a really great article a little while ago. I'm trying to find it. What is it called? The blathering superego at the end of history. And it was a really good thing about the sort of these sorts of cultural things being kind of the product of powerlessness, right? Mm-hmm. It's what people with no control over their lives and absolutely no power and no hope of anything getting better kind of do to each other to feel some kind of sense of power. It was Emmett Renson in the LA Review of Books. Yeah, it's a good read. It's a long read, but it is very entertaining.
Yeah,
but it's yeah, as you say, it completely lacks any power dynamics to it, because it is just people with no power attacking other people with no power and clutching onto the tiniest little sliver of promise of feeling powerful or feeling some illusion of control. But it doesn't make anyone's lives better. And
the sad thing is, it's like these people they're trying to tear down with their mob mentality and just complete disingenuine like interpretation of like videos or podcasts or tweets or whatever. It's really just like hurting any genuine like left movement. More like Contrapoints had probably done far more to like move people from the right than any of these like nut jobs of like 5 followers on Twitter and like anime cat girl in their like profile. Like, that's all they were. Like, if you looked in the video, none of them were their faces because they're pathetic and not willing to actually like engage with the world. They're gonna hide behind a screen and tear down the only person that's actually possibly making things a little less shitty.
Well, I mean, there are 27 different undiagnosed anxiety disorders would prevent them from, doing that. You did find a good tweet, I feel like.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's a good segue.
I'm not even going to say who it is. Are we ready to have a conversation about Iran's pioneering trans politics and trans medicine? Because I would really like to have that conversation. If you're trans and support the imperialists antagonizing and attacking Iran, you're the scum of the earth, babe. I spit on you.
Yeah, this came out when the Iran shit happened like last week, and we droned the general of Iran, Soleimani. But basically, this person just took over this like anti-imperialist argument to like argue about some like kind of like nutty like wokeness into Iran. Like,
well,
so,
if Iran was bad on trans politics, we should attack it.
Yeah, exactly. But also, like, sure, like if I looked into it and what they're arguing, and Iran is the second most trans surgeries in the whole world behind Thailand.
Yes, the reason being that if you are a male homosexual.
Well, no, you would think so there is some of that, but a lot of Eastern European and people from across the Middle East go there for surgery because it's much better than their countries. But also, there's some of that.
Yeah, no, there's an acceptable outlet for homosexuality if you are willing to gender transition, which is sort of not the most interesting thing going on in Iran right now.
No.
I really, for 2020, I was really excited for this first episode to just be a lighthearted, we were just going to talk about New Zealand and like all the fucking cute native birds we saw and shit. No, if that had to be a fucking drone strike.
It's literally our first episode title all over again, Iran-Contrapoints affair.
Yeah, that was our first
literally
episode.
The same thing.
It just happened again. There's a fucking Contrapoints mob. And the U.S. is trying to go to war with Iran.
Yeah.
Fuck me. Nothing changes.
I was like 2 weeks behind in the news, so I was like, let's catch up. And I was like, God damn it. Like, you could have just had nothing go on. It's the holidays. Just don't do anything so I don't have to read anything. And now I have to learn about geopolitics and like more Twitter shit to talk about on this podcast.
Yeah, so I think we will avoid trying to relitigate the entire history of Iran.
We are not experts in that. There's plenty of people on Twitter to go to, and it's not us.
Yeah, I think the U.S. response to it is sort of the more interesting thing, or the exact dynamics of this, right? Being like, as far as I can tell, and I don't know if this is a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but it seemed like the Pentagon basically provided Trump with a bunch of options of like military actions. And they sort of threw some like crazy curveballs in there because I don't know, like some intern was overzealous, or they had some preferred course of action, which was probably like, drone strike Yemen or some shit.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, let's just like throw in a few others, the Rand Corporation cooked up some think pieces or whatever about like, we should just target, Soleimani or whatever.
Yeah.
And he apparently just picked one of them, and we did it. And what the actual fuck?
Well, so Soleimani, Grey Zone did a piece that I like briefly skimmed, but he was actually headed to meet with like the leaders of Iraq. So it's kind of why he was like going there. It wasn't like...
Yes, he was presumably on some sort of diplomatic mission.
So I assume that's one of the reasons they took the effort as well. Is like this guy was no longer within the confines of Iran, where there are no U.S. military bases, and we're like, let's take him out. And it was so easy for like the media and stuff to like defend this shit. Like even the libs who like their brains break when Trump does anything, were still like siding with him, even if they were pretending they were, and it was crazy.
Well, but Sam, you have to remember that Soleimani was a really bad guy.
Yeah.
And he was a murderer and a terrorist. And
he's
and
worse than Henry Kissinger.
I think so. I was politically aware during Iraq and the lead up to the Iraq War. I was of a certain age.
I was a child.
Yeah, I was a teen, a young teen, but I very much remember the pattern being people who were trying to, give a sort of full-throated condemnation of the Bush administration's attempts to go to war with Iraq. They would start doing these more and more elaborate throat clearings about well, obviously Saddam Hussein is very bad, and it would turn to like, well, yes, obviously Saddam Hussein is the worst person that has ever lived, as a mass genocidal maniac and a monster, and is a deep threat to the rest of the region. But we maybe shouldn't go to war or something. And like the preamble started just being all you could hear.
Yeah.
The second part of like and we shouldn't invade just started getting quieter and quieter, and the absolutely outlandish and wild claims about the evil deprivations of Saddam Hussein, which, true or not, not actually the important point of a discussion about whether one should invade or not.
And most of that point is often not that we shouldn't have killed them, it's we just didn't do it at the right time. It's these people thinking of like this whole like geopolitical strategy of like, how do we deal with the Iran problem? And they're just like, oh, this was the wrong way, but this person was still bad and they deserve to die. And it's like, so you're just a sociopath, like who wants to like make it seem like you're like anti-war, but you're really just like mental in the head. And like, well, for one, like these people are the ones who often claim to be like libs or centrists or like legalist, and they don't apply it to anyone when it's not convenient, because like you don't kill people before you like prosecute them. Like that's the whole point of like international law and shit like that. But
the process fetishism is definitely like a liberal fixation where they're like, if Congress actually approved this, then we should invade.
Yeah.
It's like, no, fuck off.
Yeah, there's a lot of that too. It's like, oh, this is like a lot of like, oh, this is what the American people want. Like, what if they did? Like, that doesn't make it good. Like,
yeah, I don't care.
These people are so stupid.
But particularly Elizabeth Warren on The View. I like Elizabeth Warren came out very quickly after the original drone strike, with a sort of like, she used the words he's a murderer, I think was her throat clearing.
Yeah.
But didn't call him a terrorist. And then got into some like, well, but actually in Congress,
because Meghan McCain kept pushing her and was like, well, the group he's part of is considered a terrorist group by the U.S., so why haven't you called him a terrorist?
Well, no, that was Elizabeth Warren. She brought that up unprompted.
Yeah, but Meghan McCain
said, is he a terrorist? And she's like, well, he's part of a group that was labeled, yeah, but is he a terrorist? So you're not going to call him, yeah, but he's part of a group that's called, well, of course he's a terrorist.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, good work, Elizabeth Warren. You really stood up to that. That's debating skills of the master.
In a way, though, Meghan McCain did the work for the left in itself, just outing her as like part of this scummy, like neoliberal, like empire defenders as well. Like, I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, Elizabeth Warren's was known as a Reaganite, and they're definitely they did a lot of coups and shit. And then she also endorsed Hillary Clinton in the last election.
Yeah,
so it's
Warren is very hawkish in that regard.
She just doesn't talk about it because she's so stupid on it, and it doesn't go well with like her base, which like to pretend they're like socialists or whatever.
The rat-faced stupid faggot Mayor Peter Buttigieg wrote what I could only describe as like a Harvard admissions essay in a screenshot on Twitter. And it was so fucking stupid.
Did you want to read it?
No. God, no.
You can look it up.
That's the worst. It's just long and it's tedious.
Yeah.
It's written as a sort of a personal exploration of his military service in Afghanistan, and it sort of begins with the usual throat clearing about how bad Iran is and how bad Soleimani was, but then sort of the whole like, but we have to be careful about the lives of American servicemen and women.
Yeah, what about the fucking lives of all the like people in Iran? Like, these people are deranged. But he's not the only gay person who's been like soft rooting for this kind of empire. Twitter.
The Twitter gays.
The Twitter gays were doing memes and stuff, basically talking about, oh, we're so excited for the war of Iran, so we can have sex with all the Iranian and Iraqi men.
Yeah.
nothing Orientalist about that.
No, that's fine.
It
That's
literally
totally
like
fine take.
that being like one of the first things I have to like read about in the new year. I'm just like, can I just be like asexual now? I don't want to be connected to anyone anymore. Like, because these people are like just disgusting to utilize their like pseudo like sexual liberation theory to justify like force freeing all these like brown people in the Middle East who are being like, yeah, it's just fucking stupid.
Yes, it's very bad. And whether they actually like, there's a difference between that sort of like gallows humor, right? Of like, oh fuck, shit's getting real bad. And just being gross.
Yeah.
Speaking of being gross, was it Aubrey Huff?
Yeah, he's a former baseball player for the San Francisco Giants, who's like a major Trump supporter. And
oh, the tweet's gone.
Oh, the tweet's gone. Well,
that sucks.
I remember what it said. So basically, he was like promoting like we should just kidnap
10
like Iranian women
each
to come over and like feed us grapes and stuff. And then he posts a subtweet, posting a picture of like a very attractive looking Iranian woman, and it's like, see what I mean? And it's like, this is the same shit that like the libs who were doing that like talking point. It's the same thing of like the right wing. Like it's just this complete Orientalism around sexually commodifying people and like force and like liberating them, with bombs and guns and mass murder.
Yeah, it's just like it's maybe not the angle you want to take on a in the build up to an actual conflict that the result of which will be human beings turned into soap. By weapons of incredible destructive power. It's just not kind of a good taste bit.
Yeah.
If you think you're being terribly funny, sort of the many other people have made the point that Iranians are hot, and that's a good that's a perfectly good point to make, independent of a build up to war.
I've made that point prior,
sure.
But like I think lots of people are hot, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm saying you can make that point without any reference to the righteousness of war.
Totally,
and it's a perfectly good point to make. Then it's just maybe don't conflate the two. It's not good.
And it's just really sad because like
tacky.
I saw the pictures of Soleimani's two sons at the funeral, just like bawling their eyes out. It's like you can like I don't. It doesn't matter if he's good or bad. It doesn't really fucking matter to the context. But it's like. That's still a person, and it still hurts people in the end. Like, and I've heard people talking about prior, like, oh, the Iranians just are full of like toxic masculinity, like right after we like droned one of their leaders, and that's why they're so like problematic. And it's like the Ayatollah cried at the funeral. Like, one is a
pussy.
One is a like. What it doesn't fit into the narrative, and they just like completely silent on it, or it's to like mock them as like being weak, and it's like this whole like references of things that aren't relevant to what's going on in the region. It's just kind of like semi-justifying it in a way, in like a thousand cuts sort of manner. Yeah,
the only point to keep making is that the U.S. has been building up for this conflict for years.
Yeah, it's not just a Trump thing. It's been going on for a very long time, since like 9/11 when they,
Yeah, well, I mean, the original list of the
countries,
axis of evil powers. Basically, we've never gotten over the Iranian Revolution. The unforgivable crime of getting rid of the Shah and installing a not particularly nice government, and taking American hostages in the embassy, and we've just never gotten over it. And so, as a result, you have to imagine all of foreign policy in the U.S. has had this tilt against Iran ever since, and successive presidents have always tried to initiate a full-scale conflict there. So the fact that like Trump has blundered his way into it, well, sure, he's one of many, and to distract from the point that like this is a conflict we have started, we are still trying to start, and kind of like nibbling around the edges of the frivolities of like, oh, I hope I don't get drafted.
It's gross.
It's like just fuck off. Just stop it. Not right now. This is serious business.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of really stupid takes on this as well. Like, just a reminder, this is Trump's war. This is Trump's. As if there's not a giant like military industrial complex like been pushing this on as well. But also,
or a $738 billion, military appropriations bill that the Democrats, by and large, all just signed on to.
Yeah,
Elizabeth fucking Warren voted for it.
Yeah, and then also this. I think they're kind of people are trapped in like the Iraq war invasion. They keep saying this is a war for oil. It's like you've read a newspaper and like or like a news article in like years then, because like this whole thing's not about oil in the grand scheme. It's about geopolitical power and like countries like China and like Russia and like Iran and like Cuba. They don't just respect whatever the U.S. tells them to do and are willing to diverge from this neoliberal establishment. And Iran helps support countries fighting against like issues like Salafi jihadists and stuff in countries, and that upsets the U.S. and that's made a big target on their back.
Right. It's sort of the geopolitical analysis of Iran. If you get to this is about oil, you've kind of fucked up.
Yeah,
because you probably don't quite understand the dynamics of American empire at that point, right? It is. I mean, yes, there are there's like shipping considerations, but largely this is about American hegemony.
Yeah,
and therefore, it's sort of like if it wasn't about oil, it wouldn't be about anything. The fact that Iran has oil means they command more geopolitical influence in the region. And that's why they have always been a target.
Well, I think also this use of like the oil argument kind of is a way to shy away from the fact that the U.S. is an empire. It kind of like individualizes, oh, it's just this country, like it's only this because of this specific resource, instead of like a broader, like worldwide like analysis of like what's the U.S.'s role in like interfering with the rest of the world.
Yeah. So Iran has retaliated as of, I don't know, an hour ago.
Yeah.
Which, cool.
Yeah, they shot missiles at an U.S. base in Al Arab, Iraq. And, I mean, they said they would. Like, they said they were going to do it. But they also, which I thought was really interesting, like, were like, oh, we're going to target, like, the systems of power, like Trump and, like, the cabinets and stuff like that, not the American people. And I'm just like, I've never heard an American politician say anything of that great. Like even Hezbollah, like the Lebanese group, like said the same thing. And it's like,
I really want the Ayatollah now to just be like, no, we will be greeted as liberators in America. Unfurl a mission accomplished banner.
Hey,
be great.
They actually subsidize trans surgeries in their country, so
they're extremely good.
Yeah, they're extremely good.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this is going to be the last episode ever of Twink Revolution because Sam and I are going to go join the Islamic Revolutionary Guard.
Yeah, their outfits need a revamp, but as gays, we're good at that stuff.
Yeah, when I say join, I mean go do a uniform redesign.
Yeah. We don't do war.
No.
Have you seen?
Still anti-war.
My hands are fragile.
Yeah, these are not hands made for handling weapons.
Yeah, but kind of going to the other side of like the groups that I think are given a lot of conception of being like anti-war. Ihan Omar tweeted, and she tweeted, "So what if Trump wants war? Knows this leads to war and needs the distraction. Real question is, will those with congressional authority step in and stop him? I know I will." Yeah, that's fine. But then
cool, do it.
The tweet she retweeted was the whole like Soleimani was an enemy of the United States. That's not a question. The question is this: as reports suggest, did America just assassinate without any congressional authorization the second most powerful person in Iran, knowingly setting off potential massive regional war?
Ding, 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 ding. If you had liberal process fetishism on your bingo card, mark it off now.
And I was like, come on. Like, you should know better. But I mean, I guess not. That's expecting too much. And a lot of the like people like the squad have been very shitty on other interventions like Venezuela and stuff, where they fall into this like process idealization and often doing like, oh, let's have this like everyone come to a table and we can discuss our feelings and get it solved. It's like they didn't do anything wrong. Like we're the aggressors.
If we do a coup, but with like a congressional subcommittee signing off on it first,
in the
then
Vatican,
it's good.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Young Senator Bernard Sanders is good on this issue.
Daddy.
Well Daddy. Good. Yeah. And I feel like, it is, I think we and many others before us have been critical of people who try and push Bernie too far beyond what the electorate will bear, right? Trying to get him to, become a rabid prison abolitionist or like open borders now or whatever. Like, this is not that, right? And it turns out there's a very little appetite for war in the United States. And so it actually is taking a populist position to say, no, we're not going to war. And to not give comfort to those who want to sort of use the manufacturing consent mechanism to sort of say, oh, well, they're a really bad guy and this is a threat to American national security. Give no ground on that. And he's been very good at it.
Yeah.
He's given no ground on it. He will not call him a terrorist. He won't even engage in a discussion about whether the guy was actually a really bad guy.
And he's not just engaging with that, but also bringing up shit like our sponsorship of the Yemen situation in these tweets. So he's kind of not just, he's expanding the broader Middle East context of like, we're not just here, we're also here and there and here. And we need to work on de-escalating it and like withdrawing. Like I think in his tweet, he says, let me bring it up. He says, we must do more than just stop war for Iran. We must firmly commit to ending U.S. military presence in the Middle East in an orderly manner, which I think emphasizing the orderly manner is very important because if we just completely just do it all overnight, it'll just fall apart. But he also says we must end our involvement in a Saudi-led intervention in Yemen. We must bring our troops home from Afghanistan. So he's had a lot in that tweet.
Yeah. And so, I mean, to the extent that I think these supposed, young, liberal, progressive firebrands in Congress, right, the squad or whatever, they can at least go that far.
Yeah.
That's and it's not pushing them in any uncomfortable direction. And it's kind of sad yet again that these people with a sort of reputations of being these sort of populist progressives and young and upcoming radical are just way less radical than the crotchety old guy from Vermont.
What's the thing? I think they adopt a lot of the aesthetics, but then completely lack any of the like class analysis, which is highly relevant to war. Like war is a product of like primarily the capitalist war
system. Has always been the boss's way,
especially in America, where it's part of like one of the biggest parts of our economy. So wonderful.
Good,
great.
Cool. I think that's about all we got time for today.
Yeah, if we're all still here, I'm just kidding. We will be here. Well, we have a special episode next week. We won't tell you who our guest is, but we're going to have
we're very
controversial.
Excited. Yeah, we're very excited about our guest for next week.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that next Tuesday.
Also, make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to whatever app you use to listen to our podcast so you make sure you get all of our episodes and refer us to your friends and family for the new year. Yeah. That can be your resolution. Share Twink Revolution with your friends and family.
Yes. Give the gift of revolutionary twinks today.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.